Danny DeVito has created some of the most irascible yet irresistible characters in Hollywood. He first shot to fame in the late 1970s as Louis De Palma in the television series Taxi. He went on to showcase his versatility in a diverse film career. He's also earned recognition for his efforts behind the camera and with his production company, Jersey Films. He is currently producing and co-starring in Man on the Moon. It is the story of Andy Kaufman, his controversial Taxi co-star, who died of lung cancer in 1984. I'm pleased to have Danny DeVito here on this program. Welcome.
Thanks, Charlie. It's great to have you here. Great to be back.
Tell me about Andy Kaufman and why a movie about him.
Well, Andy, to me, very early on, during the Taxi days, I recognized a couple of things about Andy. First of all, he wasn't a stand-up comic. He never professed to be. He wasn't an actor. He was more of a performance artist. He was a guy who would invade your space and come into the psychological room and change it. Things that normally would go on, the normal course of events that you thought were going to happen. You come in, you're going to have an interview with somebody. This is like a one-on-one thing. Okay, you ask a question, I give you an answer. Somewhere down the line with Andy, there's something going to go screwy that you're not going to know, you're not going to see it coming. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you're not going to know what but it's going to change the tone, the dynamics of the room. Okay, so we dealt with that on Taxi in a big way. I mean, Andy didn't rehearse. He was a wild card. He was like the cousin who sits down at dinner, that you know is going to, something's going to happen at that dinner that's going to be a little bit off center. It's going to be weird. And so we dealt with it that way. And then Andy was taken away from us really quickly. It was like a month, I think. It was. I heard about it, and before you knew it, he was gone. Okay? So he's been with me all this time, since 1984. Just REM wrote Man on the Moon, this wonderful song. Nick at Night started playing Taxi like constantly. We were on for 5 years. It was a glorious time. I loved every second of that show. It was wonderful people, wonderful writing. It was a great character, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now I've got 3 kids. So relive that, okay, with the Man on the Moon song. Every time I'm taking them to school in the morning and that thing comes on the radio and I talk about Andy, and it was really the icing on the cake, like interesting things that I could say. See the show on television. Okay, Mary Lou's around. She's doing great. Judd's doing great. Tony, Chris Lloyd, all the good people in the family. Andy, okay, passed away. So you tell the kids about it, okay? 5 years ago, I'm sitting at a birthday party for a friend of mine in Manhattan. We were in town because Jersey Films, we produced Pulp Fiction. We were at the New York Film Festival. Michael Douglas was having a birthday party. Hi, Michael. And I'm sitting at a little table with Milos Forman, who directed Cuckoo's Nest. I'm getting to the end of the story.
No, I like it already.
Okay.
Keep going.
And Milos is saying, Danny, I love the Taxi so much. Tell me about it. And I said, Milos, okay. And I start, and we're drinking, and I'm smoking a stogie, and and I'm telling stories about my favorite subject. I mean, really, Taxi was, like I said, it was a family that I really enjoyed for that 5 years. And invariably, I go to the icing on the cake, the wild card, and I'm talking about Andy, and he wants to hear more stories. Tell me about Tony Clifton. Tony Clifton was the alter ego that Andy played, this lounge singer who was obnoxious, the other side of the coin. Andy was a sweet guy, okay? And at one time, one period in that evening, I don't know where it was, I don't know how many cocktails later, Milos said, Danny, we should make this movie. And I said, yes. I'm a producer. I got Milos Forman, 2-time Academy Award winner, going, we should make this movie. What am I going to say?
Yes.
Take a hike? So I say, yes, I'll produce it, you direct it. And immediately, from that moment on, I just dug in. And 5 years later, now we have, our wonderful movie. I'm very proud of it. Man on the Moon. And it's about the life of my good buddy, Andy Kaufman.
You got everything here. You got, first of all, an interesting character.
Yes.
Secondly, you've got great music because you got REM to do all this music, and they were already identified with the title anyway.
Yes.
They gave you the title.
Yes.
You got Milos Forman.
Fantastic.
And then you get Jim Carrey.
Yes. Well, Jim Carrey, okay, first person I thought of that night, back in 5 years ago. So I go out, see my partners, Stacy Scher, Michael Schamberg, Jersey Films partners, okay. I say, I got something for you guys. Wait till you hear this, okay? And so first thing I do is I call George Shapiro, who is Andy's manager. Was Andy, a wonderful guy, who, by the way, I play in the movie. I play George Shapiro. I call Bob Zmuda, who is his partner, Andy's partner in crime, who thought up a lot of the stuff that Andy, worked with Andy in his kind of crazy curveball stuff. Next thing I do is I contact Jim Carrey, his people. Okay? He's like becoming, at that time, one of the biggest stars in the country, not the world. Okay? I don't have a script. All I have is like a, passion about it, I think. Yeah. Well, I got Milos, sort of.
Right.
Okay, he said, all these things are, and we start putting it all together. I went to Jim, and Jim is like a Andy-phile. I didn't know this at the time. Andy loved Andy. Jim was like, Andy used to do the bongos, and he'd argue with himself. When Andy passed away, somehow, I don't know how, Jim got a hold of those bongos. He bought the bongos. He had them in his room when I came over to see him. It was like bizarre, okay?
Made for it.
Made for it. Okay, now, that's 5 years ago. I'm just a lot of talk so far. I got a notion, right? So I get put on hold, okay?
You got interest, but nothing on paper.
Right. And we go out and we find the right writers for the screenplay. Kazarowski and Alexander, two wonderful, Scott Alexander, Larry Karaszewski. They wrote Ed Wood. I worked with them on Mars Attacks with Tim Burton. They wrote Larry Flint. Really detailed, interesting, research, sat with, also total bananas over Andy. And as I went along, I found, producers, what you do is you go and you call and you talk and you try to get people interested and you try to fire people up, come onto your page or whatever you call it. I found that the more people I talked to, really, there was so much interest and so many people who really admired Andy that it wasn't simple, by no means. It was, 5 years of work. But it wasn't, outlandishly difficult. And these guys said, absolutely, when we're finished our next, we'll make a deal. They were writing something, and we went to work and we got a good screenplay. So Jim Carrey.
Sees the screenplay.
Well,
all actors want to see a screenplay. Now, Milos,
okay, now here's the big thing. Milos says, we get the screenplay, it's fantastic. Okay, we all go, oh gosh, studio loves it, we love it. George, all the family, people in the inner circle of Andy's life, because it's a big responsibility putting a real guy up there. Okay. Now Milos goes, Danny, there are so many people who want to play this part. We have to see Andy. I said, what do you mean we have to see him? He said, well, I can't, just meet the actor and, audition him normal way. I said, what do you want to do? He said, we must ask them to put themselves on tape. I said, Milos, I'm going to go now. I got to go to Jim Carrey, who's like by now, he's like megastar. Go put yourself on tape. Okay. So there were a lot of guys who did it. A lot of guys who wanted to do it. Big actors, big famous actors who wanted to do it. So I said, okay, let's do it. They did it.
So you went to Carrey?
I went to Carrey.
And you said to him, Jim.
Here's the thing.
How did you sell this?
But you know what was
great? How did you sell this?
Well, you know what was great about Jim? The thing about it was he really dug Andy so much. He really dug the project. He was a friend of the project before he was on board. Yeah. And he said, I want Milos to be comfortable. I want him to have who he thinks is the best guy to play Andy. It's really admirable. And not only Jim, there were other guys who did it, other actors, well-known actors, who put themselves on tape. And we got the tapes. And when I saw Jim's, my wife Rhea and I sat at home, and I got the tape. And I'm talking, and he only had a couple of weeks to work on it. Yeah. And I'm talking about
knocked out.
Oh, Charlie. It was like, I mean, there were moments there. Now, after all this time of him delving into the character and really digesting every morsel, you know, what he's done with the character is really phenomenal. He has so channeled Andy. It's amazing. He did an amazing job, and I'm really pleased. It was okay. Andy was taken away from us in '84. It was as if he were back with us for a while a year ago in the summer
Because of character.
because of Jim Carrey. Well, he didn't come to the set, Jim. Andy came. Either Andy came
Clifton.
or Tony Clifton.
Now, what makes it a great story? Other than the fact I said, why Andy Kaufman? You said he had these qualities.
All these qualities, yes.
Yeah. It's a great story, though, because...
Well, first of all, it's Andy's a puzzle. I mean, you want to dig in to find out what makes somebody tick. I don't know if I know at this point, even with all the work we've done on the movie. There's always a duality going on. There's the Andy you think you know, right? Then there are all the characters, and he's so committed to each of those characters that at the time that they're there with you, it's a little scary. That might be Andy. Is that Andy? Is that the one? Is that the guy? Is that the real Andy? And is that other guy that you think is the real Andy a character he's playing? Yeah. It's so, intricate. Yeah. And he really, if you talk to any comedian that is, on the circuit today or doing, whether it's Jerry Seinfeld or Belzer or Robin Williams or any of the major cats out there today, they all say the same thing, that they learned from Andy, they admired him. He broke the mold.
Well, you walked in here and I was just finished taping a segment with Tom Brokaw, and Brokaw reminded you of a story of being at a party with Carl Reiner. You said Andy Kaufman is changing. There's a guy who's changing the face of comedy.
That's right. And that's up there on Man in the Moon.
All right, take a look at this. This is where the character played by you, George Shapiro, sees Andy perform for the very first time. Andy is performing as Elvis. Andy in the film is acted by Jim Carrey. Here it is.
Thank you very much.
What did he say?
Thank you very much.
Very much.
See, it's like throughout the movie and throughout Andy's life, what happened was you would think this was it. You would think one thing, and it would always change. That's what I was saying before. It would always surprise you. It would pull the rug out from under you. And in the movie, like what I love about the picture, besides that, it's Jim's tour de force, and he's really done better work in this movie than he's ever done before, and he's a brilliant actor. There's a lot of that rug pulling out from under you, the audience.
Just when you think
Yeah.
Is this Oscar stuff here?
I think it's definitely Oscar. Oh, I'm going to knock on this wonderful Charlie Rose table that you have here.
That's exactly right. This Hall of Fame table I have here. Take a look at this. This is where you take Andy out to dinner, and you try to find out where he sees his career heading. Now, who's George Shapiro?
Okay, now George Shapiro, in real life, was a really wonderful manager. He was a manager of talent that people really respected. He saw Andy and saw in Andy what he thought was genius. And today, and when Andy was doing Taxi, where I met George, every single show, before and after, George was there. He was loyal. He was Andy's Sir Galahad. He was a guy who cared about every single thing about Andy's career and about his life. And he's the nicest guy you ever want to meet. He's out in California right now.
All right, roll tape. Here it is.
When I'm famous, I'm going to sell these. It's worn by Andy Kaufman. You can have this one. It's probably going to be worth a lot, because it was actually up my nose.
You're insane. but you might also be brilliant.
Great line.
Yeah. So,
So what do we know about what shaped him? I mean, where did he come from?
well,
What made him
and this is
way?
all in Man in the Moon. We take Andy from as a little boy in Great Neck, Long Island,
Right.
and from the very beginning, Andy was an entertainer. I mean, little boy, little tiny guy. Like 7. I think the movie starts when he's about 7 or 8, and he always wanted to do it. I mean, he did magic shows, he did sing-alongs, he did puppets. He was a big Howdy Doody fan, and as I was a Howdy Doody fan, but I didn't take him in my room and try to do a show with the wall as the audience. This was the difference, and you see, and I think what happened was Andy grew up. Andy went to college. He grew up. He had normal, kind of like normal life upbringing, whatever. His father and mother, very nice people from, Great Neck. But Andy just kept doing those things. I mean, even when people first saw Andy, I remember talking to John Belushi, who was my friend, God rest his soul, before I got Taxi. We did a movie called Going South together. John was we were in together. And I said, I'm going to do this television show, Taxi, and Andy Kaufman's going to be in it. I knew he'd been on Saturday Night Live, and that eyebrow that used to go up through the roof, and he said, you're in for it. And he told me the first time he saw Andy at a little club in town. He said, and they were all in the audience, and they felt sorry for this guy. He came on stage, and he was bombing. He was bombing big time. And they were all like, ooh, we got to pass the hat for this guy.
Yeah.
But of course, that's exactly what Andy wanted.
Why?
He wasn't a stand-up comic. He wasn't an actor. He was a performance artist. He
so
wanted
he's going
to
for
change.
the moment.
Yes.
He wanted something to happen in the moment that would make a difference.
Right.
Right.
He's going to go inside of you and pull out something, some emotion, something that's new.
So he's going to be bad so he can get a reaction
He's
from
going
you.
to surprise the heck out of you.
All right. Who was Tony Clifton?
Tony Clifton, and I don't mind saying it on the air, he's not a nice guy. He's a belligerent, self-centered, narcissistic, egotistical bore. And he is, without a doubt, the other side of the real Andy, because Andy was so sweet and so gentle and so nice and cared about kids and cared about people and wanted, he wanted to entertain you in a really good way, a sweet way. Tony's the other way. He smokes, he drinks, he makes terrible sexist jokes. And he opened for Andy, and he was Andy's opening act.
Yeah.
And when Taxi was done, Andy made a deal with Ed Weinberger and Jim Brooks and Stan Daniels and Dave Davis, the creators of our show, that in order to get Andy, because they wanted Andy, they wanted that foreign man character. They wanted that for Latka. In order to get Andy on the show,
Tony.
They had to hire Tony for 4 guest starring episodes. They had to do this. He had his own agent.
Yeah.
He had his own manager. He had a different answering service, the whole thing. Tony was a different guy, although we suspect that it was Andy. It was Andy. But he'd never admit it.
He never admitted
Oh, no. You could sit there, Charlie. You could say, look, come on. And shake him. Do anything. Come on. He would just go wild on you. He was just, I don't like Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
I don't like the guy at all. He's riding on my coattails. He had this kind of voice. And it was very, very hard. And we, in Man on the Moon, Jim does this I'm talking about. My kids saw the movie. That's their favorite part of the movie. And in fact, they go around talking about it. My kid wanted to be Tony Clifton for Halloween. I love him.
Great.
He's a tough guy. He doesn't take any baloney from anybody.
Now, do you think Andy was pure genius or there was just something loose?
No. I think he was crafty. I don't know about,
it was all crafty.
Geniuses are like a really, who's a genius? Okay, we're all geniuses. I don't know. I'm not. You are, but you do the show. You're such a genius. I mean, you just
Stop
do.
it.
Okay. So the idea is that, Andy was crafty. Andy was calculated. Okay, I'll give you a quick story.
All right.
First day of Taxi. First day. Okay? We're meeting everybody. We got a table set up in the front of the sound stage.
Right.
The studio, the sound stage is the set. The Taxi garage is up. Jimmy Burrows, who directed all the shows, is up there looking around. Where's he going to put the actors? Blah, blah, blah. We're meeting each other. Me, Judd Hirsch, Mary Lou Henner, Tony Danza, Jeff Conaway, Randall Carver. We're at this one end of the table. There's bagels and trade papers and blah, blah. Down the end of the table is Andy, sitting all alone, sitting there like this. Got a tape recorder in front of him. Got a headset on. Going like this. So I'm looking at the guy, 15, 20 minutes. He's sitting down there all alone. So I start feeling, let me include him. Let me break the ice. I'll go down, say hello, socially,
hey,
what's up? I go down, I tap him on the shoulder. He takes the headset out. I go, hi, Andy, I'm Danny. Extend my hand. He looks at me. He goes, hi, Danny. Right? And to break the ice, I say, hey, Andy, what kind of music are you listening to? Right? He gives it to me, the headset. This is what I hear. And I go, thanks, Andy. I give it back to him. Now, you go two ways. You say he's a consummate actor, sitting down there, studying the lines that he's created for this character of Latka, the foreign man. Or he's sitting down there for 20 minutes waiting for some sucker to ask him what kind of music he's listening to so he can lay that on you. That was Andy.
Didn't create a moment.
I think so. Blew my mind that day.
Why do you put yourself in these films other than the fact that you're a first-rate actor? I mean, you're producing these things. Do directors insist on you being there?
Well, I'm not in all the movies that Jersey produces.
I know.
We've done a bunch of movies.
But Jersey is a damn good producing house.
Thank you. We try to do movies that touch us and that we care about. And
why this one? Did you like this character? Did the director insist on you?
No, when I spoke to Milos back then, 5 years ago, I said, you'll direct it, I'll produce it, and I'll play George Shapiro. It was the first thing out of my mouth.
Oh, I see. So you wanted Shapiro.
And I didn't even think that, what am I going to do when I get down to the Taxi episodes? How's Louis going to be in there?
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't. Louis is like a really great way Milos did it because Andy plays Latka in a montage of Taxi stuff.
Was he in the end a sad character or a happy character?
He's a sweet guy, and he is a sweet guy. But, okay, did Andy, all of a sudden, out of the blue, from nowhere, you start feeling a little weird, you go to a doctor. Now, this is a guy who didn't smoke, didn't drink, ate health food, did yoga, was a TM guy. He was like, only time he smoked was when he didn't smoke. Tony Clifton smoked, but Tony was there rarely, but all of a sudden, a guy says, it's a knockout. It's talking about the guy who's pulling the rug out from under everybody, getting the rug pulled out from under him. I mean, that's big time. And I didn't believe it. I thought it was another one of his pranks. Danny, Rhea, we went to the memorial service. He had a TV up there. It was a bunch of people in a comedy club out in California. I said, any minute he's coming out from that curtain. This is baloney. I wish it were true. Carol Kane was in the East Coast. She played Simca, Latka's wife on Taxi. She went to the funeral. She told me a story that was so bizarre. She said, Danny, when I was there, she was like really filled with emotion. And she went up to the casket and poked him. Because even at that moment, she didn't think that Andy had gone. That's how he had us. That's how he had us.
It's a great story.
Yeah. Well.
Now, is there any controversy about his death?
Well, a lot of people don't think he's dead. I mean, there are websites and there's all kinds of stuff going on. I wish it were true. I mean, like I said, when Jim Carrey did this role in Man on the Moon, he channeled Andy. And every single day during the summer, when we were shooting the movie in California, I could go to see Andy. I went and talked to him because Andy was there. Jim didn't come to work. I paid Jim a lot of money. He only showed up to work twice. But that's another story. Andy came to work, or Tony Clifton. Every single day, I wish it were true. I mean, he gave us Andy back for 4 months, but I don't know. I mean, is he going to show up at the premiere? Is he going to come to the first? Is he going to buy the first ticket? I don't know. I mean,
You love the guy.
I love the guy. He's a big lug. I love him. He's listening to this. You know how happy he is now?
No, tell me.
Oh, God.
I mean, this is the ultimate. This is the ultimate.
Oh, please.
All this talk about how he's changing comedy.
Come on.
And now Jim Carrey, one of the biggest actors in Hollywood, plays him.
Playing this.
Trying to define someone they're calling a comic genius.
Yeah, and playing the part to the nines. I mean, where people are coming out thinking, you know, and people who knew him and people who worked with him, there are moments in the movie where you just, you lose your breath a little bit because of this performance. He's so wonderful. I mean, he's like really fantastic. So
it's a great idea. Good for you. Danny DeVito, actor, plays George Shapiro. The film is called Man on the Moon.
It opens December 22nd.
It opens December 22nd. And we can also say this. Danny will be followed by the guys who did the music for this. Man on the Moon was the album that provided the title and, in a sense, was some way responsible because of that.
That's right.
The family got involved.
That's right.
You know, and
Man
all
on
of
the
this
Moon
led to...
Yeah, it kept the spirit alive. It kept Andy's spirit alive.
I'm struck by, as we close this down before we go talk to Michael and Mike and everybody, I'm struck by the fact of what Milos, the role he played, based on the conversation you're having there. You know, that this was a guy who was listening to your stories and says, this is a movie.
Yes. It's because Milos, first of all, as he said when we started the conversation with him, he said, Danny, I love the taxi so much. Yeah. You must tell him. I love imitating him. I don't know why. He's a Czech. I don't know why. It's he and Arnold I do a lot. But anyway, he also saw in there this duality, this enigma, and in Milos's movies, there are always 2-3 things going on at once. And
do you ever think you figured out Andy? Do you think you got him?
I think we have him in the movie. I think we nailed Andy. Absolutely, hands down. Can I sit down and tell you exactly what made the man tick?
Yeah.
No, man. I don't think anybody...
And that's what makes it, in the end, fascinating. You'll never know what it was that, in a sense, was stirring inside of him, other than the performance you saw.
That's right.
Which was of the moment, or at least trying to create the moment.
That's it.
Danny DeVito, the movie is called Man on the Moon. We'll be right back. Stay with us.